My next pleasure is to introduce Kristen Hadeed. He believes that authentic human leadership can change the world. At 19, with hardly any leadership experience, Kristen started a cleaning business called Student Made. She never expected it to be her career. It was simply a way to earn money while she was in college at the University of Florida. I ad-libbed that. But before she graduated, her company received a contract to clean hundreds of apartments, and it changed her path forever. Kristen hired a team of 60 people to help her, and within 90 days, 75% of that team quit. That's when Kristen, obsessed with learning how to be a leader, began. Over the next 14 years, Kristen learned a lot by screwing up, but most importantly, she learned how to lead from the heart. Doing so helped her take Student Made from a small cleaning company to a business known on the global scale for its culture of belonging, its focus on people, and its purpose of building leaders. Today, Kristen spends her time helping leaders, teams, and organizations around the world embrace their humanity. She worked with just about every industry with one purpose behind it all: to build a better world through courageous, compassionate leadership. Kristen's work has been featured in news outlets including PBS, Fox, Inc., NBC, Time, and Forbes. Kristen's book, Permission to Screw Up, has sold more than 40,000 copies worldwide. Her first TED Talk has more than 3 million views on YouTube. Please welcome to the stage, Kristen.
Hurricane party. Woohoo! All right, so we're here to talk about the future of work and specifically the rising generation. And before we do that, I want to back up and tell you about my worst day ever as a leader. So this is, 2009. It was the summer right before I graduated from college at the University of Florida. Go Gators. And at this point in my life, I thought that I was moving to New York. I had a vision to work on Wall Street. I studied finance. I thought that was the path that I would take in my life. And while I was in school, I started cleaning houses as a way to make extra money, never thinking that it would be my career. And if someone would have ever told me that that's what my future destiny was going to look like, I would have cried and begged for any other life path than that. But the story goes that while I was in school, I started cleaning houses. I had some friends who really needed to make some money, so I hired them. But it was a side hustle. By no means was it a business or anything that I thought that would be my future. And right before I graduated, I got a contract to clean 800 empty university apartments. And there were so many apartments in Gainesville that needed cleaning companies that could quickly clean apartments when students moved out right before the new students moved in. And they were giving these contracts out like candy. Whoever was willing to do the work, congratulations, you now have this contract. And so I signed this contract to clean 800 apartments. I am 21 years old. I know nothing about business. I know nothing about leadership. And I signed this contract without having a team. So my first step is I need to hire people. So at that time, Facebook and Craigslist were really popular. I put an ad out. I hired 60 students in a matter of a week. There was no real interview process. If you had a pulse, welcome to the team. I decided to hire students because I was a student and I knew how hard it was to find a job that was flexible. And this was like the perfect student job because it was 3 weeks. You could work as much as you wanted or as little as you wanted. And right after the 3 weeks was up, the job was over. So I hired these people, and we are at our first apartment complex, and we're about 3 days into the contract, and I am sitting in the clubhouse, not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing as the leader. My team is out cleaning these filthy apartments. I know we just ate lunch, so I'll let you use your imagination. 4 college students that live in a place for 4 years, and then they move out, and we had to clean 800 of those. So I'm sitting in the clubhouse. I'm not, really sure, should I be out there with them? Should I be checking on them? Should I be cleaning with them? I'm not really sure what my role is as a leader. And all of a sudden I look out the window and I see a herd of people walking in the parking lot towards this clubhouse. And as they get closer, I realize these are the people that I've hired. And I just had that sinking feeling in my stomach, like something is not right. So they come into the clubhouse, they're whispering, I'm hearing, do it, somebody just do it. And I'm like, what are they gonna do? And one person stands forward in front of the group and she just looks at me and she says, we quit. And they turn around and they walk off the job. And there were 45 of them. So 75% of the people that I hired walked off the job on the third day, this mass exodus. And I can talk about the story now because I'm 35 and that was a long time ago. And it was, I can look back with a smile. But at that time, it was super defeating. I mean, to be 21 and to have 45 of your peers just walk off the job. And I'm really embarrassed to tell you this, but my first move was to Google, what do you do when 45 people quit on you? And the answer is not there. So if this ever happens to you, I hope it doesn't, just know that the answer is not in Google. And I knew that I had to get these people back because I was on the line to get these apartments cleaned. I had taken out a loan to buy the supplies. I had no way to pay back that loan. And I had signed a clause that said for every apartment that wasn't ready in time, I would have to pay for a hotel room for every resident and their family until the apartments were ready. So the pressure was on and I needed to figure out a way to get these people back. And I remember I went to the 15 people who hadn't quit. And as you might imagine, these weren't the most engaged people. They didn't even realize that 45 of their peers had walked off the job. And I'm like, we need to figure this out. What are your ideas? And we decided to host an emergency meeting. We promised everyone an early paycheck and pizza if they showed up. And everyone was a broke college kid, so every single person showed up. And I remember not really being sure of what to say or what to even address in this meeting. And I just decided to be honest. And I said, look, I have no clue what I'm doing. I remember when I said that, there was a guy in the back that said, we can tell. And I'm like, way to kick me when I'm already down. But, I just kept going. I said, my heart is in the right place. I've never done this before. I can obviously see that something is not right because a lot of you just walked off the job, but I don't even know what to apologize for. That's how bad of a leader I am. And I really want to learn and I really want to grow and I really want to do this together. And one person said, all right, I'll give you another chance. And then next thing you know, they're all whispering and I'll give you another chance and they're all coming back. And that moment was huge for me because it taught me the power of being human, of not letting our ego get in the way, of being vulnerable, of showing our heart. And I think sometimes the more that we grow in our careers, we kind of lose that. And we're taught that leadership is, we have to be strong and we have to be confident and we can't show weakness and we can't be vulnerable. And if we do that, then it's seen as a weakness. So I didn't have any of that programming at that time, at 21 years old. And I was just authentic and honest. And it was a real formative experience for me. But what that experience also did was it inspired this obsession in me with wanting to learn how to be a leader. And even bigger than that, I wanted to learn how to build a company where people really wanted to be. And when I think about my life, I guess I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in me. My grandparents immigrated from Palestine, and they had nothing when they came to the States, and my grandparents built a hotel and a restaurant from nothing, and I think I just grew up watching their example and being really inspired by that. So I'm not so surprised that this was the path that I went down in my life, but I made a decision that I wanted to see where I could take this company. And I was excited by the challenge of how do you make a cleaning company a place where people actually want to work and where people actually love their jobs. And I turned down a career in finance, and everyone in my life, with the exception of my parents, thought I was absolutely nuts to choose to not move to New York and stay in Gainesville, very much a college town, and to continue to see where I could take Student Made, my cleaning company. What happened after that? I grew the company for 14 years with an amazing team of people. We employed thousands of students over that time, and we became known for our culture, and specifically our ability to engage the next generation. We hired as young as high school, and people could not figure out how we could have people who were, teenagers or early college age engage while they're cleaning toilets. And what we really did is we became a place where we helped people become leaders. And we were able to totally turn our industry challenges on their head. So whereas our competitors experience an average 75% turnover rate. We would keep our people for years and years. And in fact, we would have students that would go to school to be mechanical engineers. They would graduate, and then they would say, I think I'm just gonna stay and clean toilets. And we'd have to be like, no, you are leaving. You went to school to be a mechanical engineer, and now is your time to go do that. And it just shows that I really don't think it matters so much the kind of work that we do. I would even go as far as to say the pay doesn't matter that much either. As long as we're paying people enough for their needs to be met, I think what really matters is the environment that we do that in and how we make people feel every day. And that was the piece that we figured out. So today my work looks a lot different. First, I live in Houston now. I moved to Houston in 2015. And along the way in my journey, I realized that my passion is really in helping other leaders and teams and organizations create a similar kind of culture that we created at Student Made. And so I work with about 200 teams a year. I have a few clients in the club space, so I definitely understand the challenges in your industry. And my team and I work with organizations to help them build cultures that people want to be a part of. I am not here to prescribe or to tell you what to do. In fact, I think you're gonna think some of my ideas are a little bit out there, and they are. But I also think that if we want to build a different world at work, then we've gotta change our approach. And nothing changes if nothing changes. And what we know about the context of our world right now is it's really challenging in our world of work, and it's only gonna get more challenging. So let me set the stage for you. We know about the Great Resignation, right? We saw that in the midst of the pandemic. We know that the service industry was hit harder than any other industry in terms of people resigning. We also know that the rising generation was responsible for a majority of those resignations. So when I say the rising generation, I'm talking about millennials, which is my generation, and the generation that comes after us, which is Gen Z, okay? Have you heard of career cushioning? This is happening right now. Career cushioning is when we are interviewing simultaneously at other places while we're keeping our current job so that we have leverage. So that we can say, hey, I want this, and then if you're not willing to give me this, well, guess what? I already interviewed at a few other places. They've already said that they're gonna give me this. So now we're put in a bind as employers to either give this person what they're asking for or to risk losing them. We're also seeing conscious quitting. Have you read about this? Conscious quitting, and I think this is gonna be especially more popular with Gen Z in particular, is I don't wanna work for an organization, bless you, that does not walk its talk. If we say that we have this culture, but it doesn't actually feel like we do, I'm leaving. If we say that these values are important to us, but I don't actually see my leaders living them, I'm leaving. So it's that we want to work in a place where we believe there are values, there's integrity, and it's not just lip service. We're actually walking our talk as an organization. So that's a little bit about that. We also know that the rising generation is the most disengaged generation we've ever had in the workforce. 55% are actively disengaged. This isn't like I'm a little disengaged. This is actively disengaged. We also know, and I don't mean any offense to this, we've seen it be called the silver tsunami, which is going to be a time when we have a lot of boomers retiring. And what's gonna happen when the people who are supposed to fill that bench are actively disengaged? What does the future look like? What does the future of leadership look like? We've gotta change that, right? Like, why are our future leaders so actively disengaged? We also know that there is political change and unrest, social change and unrest. And then you mix all of that with economic uncertainty. And we know that the pandemic has fundamentally shifted the way that so many of us view our work. And maybe this isn't true for you, but for many people, it's, okay, wait, why am I giving so much of myself to my work? There's other parts of my life that matter too. And maybe you're seeing kind of a lack of a willingness to go above and beyond like people used to do. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing right now with the clients that we work with. It's, okay, we have people, they're here, they're in their job, but it's like we can't tap into them. We can't get the best out of them. People aren't willing to give that energy and that passion and that spirit that maybe they were before, and it just feels like there's a challenge there. So I don't know if maybe that resonates with you. So is anyone a little stressed out? Because that's a lot, And when we think about the future, what does that mean? And it's not gonna get easier. And I think, again, if nothing changes, nothing changes. The way we think about leadership and culture has to shift if we want to have a different outcome. What we're gonna do today is I'm gonna walk you through 4 ingredients that I think are really critical as we look to the future. And I'm gonna share within these 4 categories how we did these things in my company. I'll share some stories of clients that I've seen do it in their organizations to give you some perspective of what these things can look like in different industries. There may be ideas that you think that will never work in our club, and you may be right. I also want to encourage you to think differently and to challenge the status quo. And just because something has been done this way forever doesn't mean that we can't change the way it's done from this point forward. So it's up to you to take what resonates, with you from this. But I'm gonna share some ideas that I know are going to be a little bit provocative and maybe things that you have an immediate reaction of, I don't think we can do that. So I encourage you to push through that barrier if you notice that coming up for you. There is a PDF that is printed out. Thank you to the amazing CMAA team for doing that. And it's just a summary of the high-level takeaways because I do not have PowerPoint. We're not gonna be going through it in the session. We just did that as a resource for you. I'll be mentioning a lot of books, a lot of different tools, and all of that is in there. So I really just want you to be present and to know that, that's there if you need something to look at afterwards. And then what we'll do is I'll speak for about half of our time. We have 90 minutes together. And then we'll open up the second half for discussion and questions, and feel free if you want to challenge me on anything or if there's an idea that you want to unpack a little bit. And we'll end when it feels natural to end. So, we're supposed to go till 2, but if it's a little before 2 and we feel like we're in a good place, we'll end there. Sound good? Okay, so we're gonna start with the first ingredient, which is passion, right? And when I think about when someone is passionate at work, what I think about is someone is alive, like they have a spark that is lit and it's contagious, and you feel their engagement and you feel their enthusiasm and you feel that they're inspired. And we know that when people are in that place, we're gonna have a better culture, our members are gonna have a better experience. But I think the problem, the challenge, I should say, with an industry like yours is similar to the challenge that I had in my industry. It's not necessarily an industry that the rising generation is looking at and thinking, I'm gonna be able to find my passion there. Because what we're taught in school is that we should go find our passion, and we have this pressure to find our dream job, right? And I don't get it, because when we are 18 years old, how are we supposed to know what we're passionate about when we haven't tried really anything in our lives, but we have all this pressure to choose this thing and to, figure out what our life is gonna look like. So for me, as a cleaning company, it was really hard to sell, hey, we have a dream job here available for you. You're gonna be mopping and dusting and vacuuming. And by the way, our customers have very high expectations. They expect that you don't miss anything. Who wants to sign up? Oh, and we can't offer to pay you what the coffee shop in the mall is paying, which is gonna be a way easier job. Who wants to sign up for something like that? So I just felt very discouraged. Like from the get-go, I didn't have something that I could really sell people. And what I want you to know is that you don't have to have the most glamorous industry, the most glamorous role, the most glamorous job description to tap into someone's passion and motivation. I think I'm gonna start with sharing the story of Monique. So Monique is someone who has been working with me for 12 years. And when she started in my company, she was a student, and she was looking for an extra way to make money while she was in school. She joined us during our busy summer season. We had a lot of apartments that we were cleaning, and she intended it to be just a short-term job. After she started making some money, she thought, you know what, I'll keep this up while I'm in school as a way to keep earning a paycheck. But she was going to school for interior design. And ever since she was a little girl, that's what she wanted to do. Her grandfather was in construction. She would go with him to job sites. She was fascinated. And so everything that she was doing was around interior design. She did not see herself growing with a cleaning company. It was just a job, just a paycheck. And then it came time for this really big experience, an internship that she had in Dallas. And she was gonna be with a design firm for the summer. She was supposed to go there, learn more about interior design, and she was so excited for this experience. And it was a total letdown. The culture wasn't great. Nobody trusted her. She wasn't empowered to do anything meaningful. She was making copies of things, making coffee, not doing any kind of design work whatsoever. And this was right around the time when she was graduating. So she came back from that internship and she was very defeated. And she said, I am beginning to question what it is that I want to do in my life, which just shows the importance of culture, right? Because here's somebody who studied all these years to do this, and then she has this one experience and is now questioning her whole future. She said, do you think it'd be possible for me to continue to work here after graduation just until I start to see maybe what I want to do with my life? I said, sure. Over the years, Monique served many different roles in our company. She became a trainer and started training other employees to clean. We started a software company where we built scheduling software for other cleaning companies. She became an integral part of that company and helped us get it off the ground. After that, my speaking was starting to take off. I needed help on that side of the business. She became the chief of operations on that side of the business. And then as things grew, I started to notice that her real strength was in future, like envisioning the future and designing a future path. So using some of her design strengths, but in a different way. Today, she is our chief of growth, which means she's responsible for taking my vision of where the business is going and determining the best path to get there, and really designing that path to get there, and making sure that everyone in our company is on the same page of how we're gonna get there. If she were here, she would tell you that she is in her dream job. But it looks nothing at all like she ever expected it to look like. When she started cleaning toilets, she never thought that she would give up this dream of being an interior designer and that 12 years later she would be where she is today. Just like for me, I thought I was gonna work on Wall Street, and I never expected that cleaning one house would lead me to a place where I'm standing here with you today. And I'm sure if you look back on your career, where you are today might not be where 18, 19, 20-year-old you thought that you would be. Maybe so, maybe you were lucky to have that vision at a young age, but most likely for a majority of you, not the case. So how do we teach young people that? Because I think what we're seeing, and we're seeing it as entitlement, we expect to have a dream job. We expect to start off doing work that we absolutely love, doing work that we're absolutely passionate about, making the exact money that we want to be making, having the exact role that we want to be having. And if that isn't the case, if we're not able to get that, well, then I'm just gonna keep searching for the organization that will get me that. And I really believe that's what's underneath a lot of the turnover that we're seeing, this constant turnover. What we decided to do was just be honest. This is not your dream job. This is a cleaning company. You're gonna clean toilets, and it's gonna be really hard. But here's what we can promise you that other industries and organizations can't. You're gonna learn so much more by working in this company than you would in other organizations. You're gonna meet clients, you're gonna build connections, you're gonna build a network by being in people's homes and being, intimate with them in that way, which is very much like your members and your employees. You're gonna learn customer service, you're gonna learn problem solving. You're not gonna have anyone standing over your shoulder 24/7, so you're gonna have to become confident, make decisions. Our goal is that one day you're gonna look back and you're gonna be able to say, I am who I am today because I cleaned toilets at Student Made. This isn't your forever place. For so long, we were focused on retention, retention, retention. How do we keep people? How do we keep people? How do we keep people? The moment we stopped focusing on that, and we started focusing on how do we just address that this might not be the forever job. Let's just call it, like this isn't your forever place. What do you think happened? People didn't want to leave. The more we were honest and authentic, people trusted us and they didn't want to leave. One of my favorite authors is Meg Jay, and I have this book in your PDF. She wrote the book, The Defining Decade. And she is a psychologist that works with people in their 20s. She helps them really prepare and build the life in their 20s that they will want in their 30s and beyond. If you have children who are college age, highly, highly, highly recommend getting them this book and having them read it. I wish I would have read it when I was in school. She talks about this concept called identity capital. And she says, in the first part of our career, really our 20s, what we should be looking for is not the dream job and not our passion. We should be looking for opportunities to build identity capital. Identity capital is kind of like all the experiences that cause us to learn something, especially what we're not meant to do. She says the more that we learn what our strengths are not, the more we know later in our life what we should be looking for to really feel fulfilled and engaged. So she says, stop figuring out exactly where it is that you're meant to be going, and instead look for as many opportunities as you can to learn, okay? And this becomes your identity capital. And that identity capital becomes the currency that allows you later in your life to get the things that you want, the career that you want, the job that you want. But if you don't have any identity capital, you're gonna have a real hard time getting that later. So what we decided to do was make Student-Made a place where you build a ton of identity capital. One of the very first things we did when you got a job with us, you would take a 4-hour workshop. This is before you learned how to clean, how to dust, any of that. And we would say, we're gonna help you learn about yourself, okay? And one of the things we did in that workshop is we helped people identify their sweet spot. And I think the sweet spot is really where our passion is. It's another way of saying passion. It's where two things must exist. Our motivation and our talent must meet. If we are working in a place where we're motivated and we're talented, we are more likely to be in a place where we're engaged, we're fulfilled, where we're living in our passion, right? So we did 2 assessments, and I don't know if you've ever done assessments in your clubs, but it's something that is really valuable for your employees. We did the Strengths Finder assessment, which is through Gallup, and what it does is it gives you your 5 top strengths, your 5 natural strengths. So for example, one of mine is activator. And knowing that about myself has been huge, because as an activator, I know that my biggest strength is inspiring action. My strength comes through when we're launching a project in my business, an initiative, like being on that first call to kick it off and to get people excited and to take the next step so we can put it in motion. I can activate someone that's trying to navigate a challenge and they're kind of frozen and they're not sure what next step to take. I can activate them to take action. Knowing that about me as a leader has helped me learn where I can insert myself to really be living in my strengths. So Strength Finder gives you your top 5 strengths and it helps you understand how to live those. But then there's another assessment that is not known in the leadership and business world, and I wish it could be more. It's called the M Code. And the M Code stands for motivation code. And what it does is it asks you to share times in your life when you've been motivated, and it strings together the common thread from these different experiences and tells you your biggest motivations. So one of mine, which I never really understood about myself, I kind of had this feeling but could never really articulate it. My number 1 motivation is meet the challenge, which means the more challenging something is, the more I am motivated. Isn't that kind of sick? Everything could be falling apart and I'm like, this is the moment I've been waiting for. And I am so excited to jump in while there's people that are like, I gotta get out of here. This is not where I'm at my best. So it's helped me see my job as a leader is to be a problem solver. When everything is crashing down, I'm gonna help paint a vision of how we're gonna get through it, right? So knowing that has made me a better leader, but I wanna give that knowledge to my people. So everyone got to take this assessment where they learn their motivations and their strengths, and that is what we said, this is your sweet spot. And we said, here's what we want you to do. We want you to practice. We want you to see if you can live into your sweet spot in this role, okay? Because we believe you can bring a sweet spot with you to any role, any job. It's looking for ways to use your unique strengths, your unique capabilities, and your motivations. And I think it was huge because it was like self-awareness. People got to learn something about themselves. And that was the first introduction they had to our company before they ever learned how to dust or vacuum. They were learning about that. And then we said, guess what? This is what's probably gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to live 80, 90% in your sweet spot here. But this is a great place for you to practice and learn about yourself, and then you can take that with you in your next step. So we framed everything around, this isn't meant to be a place that you stay forever. We want you to learn about yourself and take those skills with you somewhere else. And that is how I think we really challenged that piece. Because for our industry, people aren't looking at it as a dream job. I think it's how we were able to create a place where people stayed for years and years because they felt like it was a place where they could learn and they could build that identity capital and they could explore. I want you to think about your job ads, if you're recruiting for any positions, and I want you to just think about, are they completely honest? Are you painting the positives of the job, the negatives of the job? That was something we did really well, and I think people really respected that because they knew what to expect, and there were no surprises. And we actually did something called an info session. So if you were to apply for our company, before you were offered an interview, our first step was you had to come to this info session. And we would actually have students presenting, here's what it's like to be an employee of Student-Made. Here's your best day on the job. Here's your worst day on the job. Here's times where I've wanted to quit my job. We would talk about the good, the bad, all of it. This is a place where you're gonna learn. This is a place where you're gonna build identity capital. All of that was a part of this info session. And then we would say, if you're still interested, please sign up for an interview. Here's where you can do that. And it really diminished the chances of having that painful conversation of later, oh, this job is nothing like I expected. So now I'm moving on to find a different job because it's just not what I really thought it was gonna be. We didn't really have that, because we put all that out on the table up front. We were authentic about that, and we empowered them to make that choice. So are you helping people identify their passion? Are you being realistic with jobs that maybe aren't the most glamorous and dream job-esque? Are you helping people build identity capital? Are you being completely authentic in your recruitment about the positives and the negatives of working in your space? And if not, how can you maybe rethink how you're doing that? The second ingredient has to do with growth. And I think specifically with this rising generation, we have people that really want to grow. And they want transparent pathways to growth. When am I getting a raise? What's the raise gonna be? What's my path to grow in my career? When am I gonna get a promotion? Maybe you've heard this from your team. It was stuff that we used to hear all the time. In fact, I remember a conversation with a gentleman on our team. He had just turned 18. And he said, I am ready to open a location, a franchise when you're ready. And we were like, you just got your license like 2 years ago. You're not ready to open a franchise, But what we didn't want to do was dim the excitement and the enthusiasm and the passion for growth. A part of this, I think, is that the rising generation does not have realistic expectations. And it's no one's fault, but I don't think we've really been taught what to realistically expect in our careers. Look at our world. Everything is instant. You want to buy something, 2 clicks, there you go. It's on your doorstep. You want to watch something, 1 click, there it is. I grew up with a phone. Everything was instant. You want to get in touch with a friend, boom, boom, there you go. And the problem is that our career and other things like building relationships take patience, and they take time, and they take investment. But we haven't been raised to know that. We don't understand patience. So what we really need are leaders and organizations that are willing to teach us, here is what you can realistically expect in this job. This is what growth looks like. We also need leaders who are willing to be honest with us, give us feedback about the ways that we can be better and the things that we're doing really well. We were raised in what was called the self-esteem movement, which is when parents and educators were taught that the best thing they could do for us was to tell us that we're amazing at everything, right? We know that there are high schools that stopped recognizing valedictorians because they didn't want one student to stand out amongst the rest. Everyone got a pizza party, right? You got first place, you got last place, everyone gets a trophy. I played soccer, I was a terrible soccer player. I never practiced, I never even played in the game, I was always on the bench. My team won this tournament. I remember getting the trophy, walking out with it, and my dad was like, absolutely not. You did not earn that. You didn't do anything to earn that trophy. That is not going in your room. But not everyone had parents that were honest with them. So here's what we would see in our company. We would have parents that would ask to be in on interviews so they could speak on their child's behalf, to tell us what they were good at. We would see that we would give people feedback, and it might be very obvious that this is the first time that they're receiving that feedback, and it would be very tough with the reaction, maybe really emotional, feeling like we had to walk on eggshells, and really struggling with what to be honest about there because of that reaction. We would notice that in interviews specifically, people had a lot of trouble saying what they're good at, what their strengths are, because when you've been told you're great at everything, how do you know what you're actually good at, right? So we see and we hear that this generation is entitled, and look, I have to say there's a bit of truth to that, okay? I can see that. And I don't think it's intentional. I think there's a gap, a disconnect. I don't think our parents and our educators maybe gave us the most realistic expectations and the most honesty out of love. It was no one's intention for that to be the outcome. It was all out of love. I'm a stepmom to an 11-year-old. I get it. You want your kid to have a better life than you did. You want to build them up. It's a really hard balance to walk. So that means now it falls on us to give these realistic expectations. And I guess the first thing is we need to talk about financial transparency. I think it's a big deal. I think our world is going there. We know that there's definitely different states where you have to now say, here is the wage that we're offering for this role when you advertise for a role. And I think what's happening in that case is that people are thinking, okay, wait a minute, I have been loyal to this club, right, for X number of years. And I'm seeing now that this role that I'm doing is being advertised with a pay rate of this, which is more than what I make. And that's not fair. So now I'm wondering, does this place value me? Because why am I not being paid what our current market rate is? I don't know if you've had any challenges like this in your organization, but it's happening everywhere. And I think it's a big issue. I think that if we don't have transparency around compensation, people will make up a story that is often way worse than the reality. One time we had a team meeting, and I gave everyone a blank piece of paper. And I said, let's see what you think about how much money we spend and like our finances as a business. I'm gonna just shout out different expenses, and I want you to write down how much you think they cost us a month. And I remember we got to salary. And there was someone in the room that thought our monthly salary as a company was $100 million. And then there was someone like 3 chairs down that thought it was $500. I'm like, your paycheck is more than that every month. Why, how do you think that our, But it just shows that people don't have all of those dots. And it's okay, that's not their job. But it's our job as leaders to help people understand the numbers that go into our organizations. Because again, if we don't, people will make up the story, and it is definitely something that they're talking about, potentially even gossiping about. So we decided to have complete financial transparency. And we set up Student Made very similar to how a school would be set up. When you start here, you are a freshman. And as a freshman, you're going to earn this hourly rate. And once you've been here for X amount of time, you will go to sophomore level. And at sophomore, you're this hourly rate. And after that, you'll go here, junior, at this level. And then you'll be a senior, which is this level. And that was the same across the board. And our philosophy was, if you are not performing, if you're not meeting the expectations of the job, then you simply won't be here. So as long as you are meeting the expectations of the job, this is the path to growth you are on. Let me tell you what that did. We never had conversations around, when am I getting a raise? We never had conversations of, this person is in the same role as me. Why is this person making more than me? Because everyone had those pieces to the puzzle and everyone understood. Today in my company, we have complete financial transparency. Everyone knows what I make. Everyone knows what each other makes. We actually determined our hierarchy and our pay scale together. We decided like specific roles that come with specific responsibilities are in a different structure than these roles that don't come with those same expectations and responsibilities. And I know it might seem a little odd that we had that conversation as a team. We had to have a certain level of trust to be able to do that, but it's made it so that there are no secrets. Everything is out on the table. Everything is authentic and open. And we have major trust because of that. We also are able to make better decisions for the organization because of that, because everyone understands our numbers. They're empowered to know what decisions to make so that it improves our numbers. There's a great book, if this is resonating with you, called Reinventing Organizations. And the author talks about a type of organization called a teal organization. And he says, if we can aspire to be teal organizations, we're gonna get the best out of our people, and we're gonna be the best as a team. A teal organization is essentially when everyone is kind of like an entrepreneur within an organization. They understand all the numbers, they're empowered and equipped to make decisions, and you'll find in a teal organization that people will make better decisions for the good of the team because they have that knowledge, and therefore they feel they have that trust from their leaders and the organization. So maybe check that out. We had another issue though. So I explained that we had people on this path for financial growth, but then you get to senior level, and what's next? We did not have unlimited spots on our leadership team. We were a cleaning company. We didn't have a ton of roles that we could offer people. So we got to this point where it was like, wait, how do we continue to offer pathways to growth? So we did a few things. One, we started something called our ambassador program. And this was essentially like a paid internship program that allowed you to shadow different parts of the business. So one season you would be in HR, one season you would be in our office, one season you'd be in our operations, maybe our inventory, one season you'd be in the culture and planning employee events. And it was a year-long internship where you would rotate, you would spend a couple days a week in that program while you're also cleaning houses. It was paid, but we had a rule. You had to be in the company for at least 2 years to be able to apply for that internship program, and you could be in the program for a max of 2 years before your time was up and we had to give someone else the experience. And at any given time, we maybe had 15 ambassadors, and it became this really esteemed thing. So there might be another way for you to offer pathways to growth that don't necessarily look like giving someone a promotion or giving someone a different job title. We also looked at growth as how do we continue to help people grow and learn about themselves. We did something called Development Day once a quarter where we would bring everyone together in the same room for 3 hours. We would ask them the topics that they were curious about. We would present on those topics. We never brought in anyone externally. It was all led from within, people who are passionate about those topics. And we learned things like, I really want to know how to make a personal budget. Or I really want to know how to, make a 5-year plan for my life. And so we would have these exercises and these activities where they would learn about these things, but they had nothing to do with cleaning. We had a library where people could come and rent books, and they got points. And the more points they got to redeem those points for things. We wanted to reward them for investing in themselves. We would offer workshops where we would do more assessments, like the Strength Finder and the M Code, like I told you. We were always offering opportunities for people to grow and to learn if they wanted those opportunities. So think about, what is your culture around growth? Because if you're not actively providing those opportunities, you may have people that are feeling stifled and feeling like they can't see the pathway to growth, and therefore they might be assuming that that opportunity doesn't exist with you, and now maybe I need to go find another opportunity to do that. There's also something else around really being intentional with how we are steering people to grow. Growth looks different for everyone, and not everyone is excited about the same kind of growth path. And it took me a long time to realize this. I thought growth looked like going up for everybody. And if you weren't going up, you weren't growing. And so I was always motivated to help people find a way to elevate them. Then I learned about Kim Scott's work. She talks about rock stars and superstars. Has anyone ever heard of this concept? A few people. So the idea is you have both types of people in your organization, and you need both, okay? A rock star is someone who is a specialist. A rock star is the person that you've had on your team for 30 years, doing the same job every day, and absolutely loves their job. I'm sure you have someone like that on your team, right? That is your rock star. They help us keep the drum beating. They are motivated by being more of a specialist within their role, okay? Not excited to move up, not excited to be the leader of the team. I just want to do this thing, master it, and do it really well. Then you have superstars, the complete opposite. Superstars will get completely bored if they're put in a place where they have to do the same thing day in and day out. The superstars are the people asking you, when am I getting my promotion? What's the future of my career look like? What's the next step in my career evolution? Superstars need variety. The superstar is the person that starts on the team and then wants to be the leader of that team in a couple years. They are motivated by an upward growth trajectory. And I'll give you an example. I see this happen a lot on sales teams, okay? A company will take their best salesperson, the person that contributes the most to their bottom line, and they will say, you are so good at sales, we're promoting you to be the leader of the sales team. We want everyone to sell like you, and we want you to create this kind of culture. And what happens is the results go down, and that person's engagement and fulfillment drops, and no one can figure it out. This was the top performer. What happened? What happened is this person was a rock star. They loved to sell. Selling was their specialty. And because they care about the team, they were willing to accept this promotion. But now we've turned them into a superstar. And that's not what their authentic growth path is. So think about that. How often do we unintentionally as leaders mold someone to be in a role that maybe isn't really what is best for them? And I think what it requires is talking about growth. What do you see for yourself? What is exciting to you? What are the things that these are two of my favorite questions to ask. What are the things that you want to stay the same for you to continue to be happy here for the next 5 years? And what do you think we need to change in order for you to continue to be happy here for the next 5 years? And having those conversations every 6 months or every year. I just did those 2 questions with everyone on my team a few weeks ago. Because if we don't talk about it, then people are thinking about it and they're coming up with scenarios of what they think is possible or not possible. And we might be losing some of our best people because of that. I think sometimes the reason we avoid those conversations is we're maybe afraid of what the conversation's gonna lead to. What happens if someone says, I want this, and there's no way we can offer that to them? You know, it maybe feels discouraging, like I don't wanna have this conversation and then let this person down and tell them we can't give them the thing that they want. What I've learned is to just be honest about that. Look, I care about you, and I wanna be really honest. What you really want is not something that we have here. But I care about you so much. If that's what you really want, I want you to go for that. And I wanna be able to help you with that. And here's what happened when we started to have that kind of culture. People started giving us 1-year resignations. Maria was our first one, I will never forget. She's like, so I'd like to submit a resignation. I'm gonna be moving on in 365 days. I'm like, what? Just imagine for a moment if everyone gave a 365-day notice. I mean, wouldn't that be like, assuming they're the people that you want to stay, wouldn't that be the most amazing thing? It allowed us a full year to plan for her transition, to find someone to take her role. She got to interview at other places. She got to, have the best transition for herself. But it was because we had a culture where we were talking about growth, where people weren't afraid to talk about it, where I was asking people to tell me what their vision for growth was. It was leading to this self-exploration. And here's the reality. If someone wants to move on, they're gonna move on anyways. So what's worse, have a culture where we don't talk about it, or get it out in the open and make a plan together so that it's the best transition for both parties? I believe in the second. Let's talk about it. Let's be human. Let's be authentic. So thinking about your pathways for growth. Feedback is another part of this equation. What is your culture around feedback? Do you give feedback? Are you equipping your leaders to give feedback? Especially when things are challenging, like our climate at work right now, it might be hard to want to give that feedback. I've been there. You're already tight on people. You need everybody. You don't want to give this person feedback that's going to set them off the edge and then potentially lose them. And then now the team is overwhelmed. So we kind of let stuff slide and we don't really address it. And I have certainly done that. But here's what happens. We lose respect. We lose trust. And the people who are our best employees are looking at us like, wait a minute. I come here and I give my best every day. This person is giving 50%. No one's called them out on it. They're late, whatever it is. And we get the same pay, right? Like, I have an issue with that. As leaders, we must give feedback. A method that we love on our team, if you're looking, actually I'll share 2 that we love on our team. We love the FBI. This is our feedback language in our company. It stands for Feeling, Behavior, Impact. We teach everyone how to use the FBI. We say when you have feedback to give someone, you give it in FBI form. And what's really cool about that is we can go up to someone and say, hey, I need to give you an FBI, and everyone's on the same page and knows what that means. It goes like this. Hey, I need to be really honest with you. I felt discouraged this morning when I learned that you were 30 minutes late to your shift. And the impact is now I'm unsure if I can rely on you. I don't want that to be the case. Help me understand what happened here, right? I felt let down when you were 30 minutes late for your shift. The impact is now I'm not sure if I can rely on you, FBI. The other method that we use, keeps and considers. The keeps, here are the things you're doing that I love, keep doing them. They're great. They're having an awesome impact. Here are the things I want you to consider doing differently. These things are hurting the team, not getting the best result. Why don't you think on those? And tomorrow let's talk about what your thoughts are there and how you plan to move forward. Keeps and considers. I try to commit as a leader to the 24-hour rule, which is when I have feedback to give somebody, I'm gonna give it within 24 hours. Doing so means I'm consistent. People know where they stand. They're not questioning if there's something I'm thinking and feeling and not expressing to them. And now that has been something that we've adopted in our culture, the 24-hour rule. When you feel something, bring it up, talk about it. The final thing here with growth is sometimes it means we have to love people out. It's one of the hardest parts of being a leader, I think. Jim Collins, he's the author of Good to Great. He has a great framework to help you think about this. He talks about values, will, and skill. He says, when someone is not meeting your expectations, you need to identify if it's a values problem, a will problem, or a skill problem. Values. Does this person align with the values of your club and your culture? If the answer is no, they have to go. There is no feedback that will change someone's value system. And on our team, what we would do is we would have a culture audit once a quarter. I would ask all my leaders to say, does this person align with the values or not? There was no maybe. It was a yes or a no. And for the people that were a no, we protected our culture fiercely. They had to go. It was best for them and best for us. Will. This is about the person's motivation. This is about their desire to grow, to be better, to change, to do it differently. As a leader, you can ignite their will a little bit, but you cannot be the sole igniter of that will. It takes their participation. So a will is someone just isn't motivated. They're just not growing. They're not taking your feedback. They're not doing anything with it. What that might mean is maybe they're in the wrong role. Maybe they're a rock star in a superstar role or a superstar in a rock star role. Maybe they're not in their sweet spot, or maybe this just isn't the place for them. And as a leader, your job is to get to the heart of what's going on here. And then there's skill. Skill is the technical ability to do the job. You can train someone, but if you've done all the training and they still can't do the job, then it's okay, is there another job that they can do here that they have strengths in? And if not, then it might mean then we've got to love them out. I think the most challenging thing can happen when you have someone that has the values and the will, but they don't have the skill. And I had that on my team last year, someone who is the epitome of the kind of culture that we would want to have, represents everything that we stand for, always positive, always willing to grow and to learn and to do better, but she could not do the technical skill. She did not have the strengths to do the job. And there was not another role for her. And what I used to do as a leader was create roles for people. We don't really need this role, but I want to keep this person, so I'm just going to create this role. But that's not what's best for the organization, and it's not best for the person. They deserve to find a role where they're able to tap into their strengths, and we were able to make this decision together, and sometimes that's what it takes. So think about values, will, and skill. All right, we've talked about passion, we've talked about growth. We have two more pieces here. I want to talk about freedom. How many of you have heard from your team that they want to work from home? Or they're asking if there's opportunities to work from home. Is that something that you're hearing from your, I'm seeing some hands. Yeah, we didn't have that luxury. You can't clean a toilet from your house, so everyone's gotta be here, right? And I actually don't think that the debate seems to be about working from home. We're looking at these different organizations in different industries. We know that many of them have required their employees to come back into the office, and people are really upset about that. And some people are really happy about that, but there's a majority of people that are really upset about that. I don't actually think it's about working from home or not working from home. I think it's about freedom, and I think it's about trust. And with the whole working from home, not working from home debacle, I think what it is, wait a minute, in the pandemic, I proved to you that I could do this job, I did it from home, and now you're requiring me to come back in. It feels like you're taking a freedom away from me, and what, you don't trust me when I just proved that I could do this. I think that's kind of the challenge that we're seeing in other industries. But for me, I could never offer work from home, but I still think freedom is really important. I have a client that is an orthodontist. She has a small practice. And she called me one day, she said, I don't know what to do. I can't attract people to this job. I'm beginning to lose people. I'm gonna have to give a salary increase to everyone, increase the rate on our job ads. And I can't honestly even afford that, but I'm just gonna have to do that because I don't know what else to do. And I said, do not do that. Before you make that decision, I want you to ask everyone on your team this question. Ask them to rate in the order, these three things in order of importance: pay, culture, freedom. What do you think was number one in every single answer except for one where it was number two? Freedom. Culture was number two across the board except for that one where it was number one. And pay was last in every single response. Freedom. So the question is, how do we create more freedom and more trust? One of the things we did in Student Made that made us stand out is we had complete freedom around scheduling. And this is the part where you might think, I don't know if we can do this, so just hang on with me. We allowed people to tell us when they were going to work. And then we said, we're gonna hold you to that. We're gonna give you the trust to determine your schedule, but when you commit to it, we're going to expect that you honor that commitment. Every semester, they had the chance to change their schedule, And then we gave them an opportunity to swap shifts. So if something popped up in a semester, like they forgot to study for a test or they needed to go on a trip with their friends or whatever, okay, but you have to get that shift covered. And it has to be covered by someone that is approved, that that client knows, that's been in their house, et cetera. That was the number one thing we heard in exit interviews of why people loved Student Made, was because of that freedom and flexibility around scheduling. I think this is a place where we're gonna see a huge shift as we look to the future. We're seeing that, especially with this rising generation, there is this desire to have a life outside of work. I think a part of it is we watched our parents work. And for some, that didn't really get them anywhere great. And so we don't wanna live our life in the same way. I think maybe that's not the case for everyone, but I know that is definitely a theme for many. And there's more to life than just work. And work is a part of my life instead of my life and my identity. I have trouble relating to that because as an entrepreneur, work is so much of my identity. And I love to work. And I also love other parts of my life outside of work. And I'm trying to be more balanced there. But I think as we look to the future, this is gonna be a huge thing. And I noticed something in my company. So today, I sold the cleaning side of the business, and today my company looks a lot different. And so we have the ability to offer perks that we couldn't offer in the cleaning business. And we moved to an unlimited paid time off policy. And what I noticed when we did that is, surprisingly, paid time off went down. People stopped taking it. And I think there were a few reasons to that. One, I wasn't taking time off. So I was kind of setting the tone that, yeah, we have this policy, but I don't ever take time off. So it's not encouraged to take time off. I think unintentionally, I was kind of setting that culture. I wasn't holding people accountable to taking that time off. And I thought just having that policy was enough. And then if I did take time off, guess what I was doing? I was emailing and working the whole time. So I was also setting this intention that time off isn't really time off. And then we started to read different books as a team. We're super passionate about growing and learning. And we read a book called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. And I highly recommend it. We also read Dying for a Paycheck, which is another really great one. And in the book, It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work, they talk about this idea of a calm organization. A calm organization values the well-being of every person. A calm organization takes time off. A calm organization holds people accountable to taking time off so they can rest, rejuvenate, be at their best. A calm organization gives freedom, gives flexibility, doesn't make people choose between their life at work and their life outside of work, creates work-life harmony so that work and life can really work together. And that was a real turning point for us. From there, we decided to incorporate something called Break Week. This is where you're gonna be like, what are you talking about? So every quarter, we close our company for one whole week, and we all take time off at the same time. And over the holidays, we do 3 weeks. So what that means is I know that everyone in my company is taking 6 weeks off per year minimum, and it's paid. I know. I know that's not possible in your industry, and that's not what I'm suggesting. But what I notice is that by making that decision as a leader, the team feels that I really value their well-being and their life outside of work. Because it's not an option. Everyone is taking this time off because I care about you, and we're closed. You cannot work. Of course, there's a lot that goes into that. If you want to know more, we can talk about it in the Q&A, how we prep our clients for that, all of that. But could you do a break day? Could you do a break afternoon? Could you schedule people in shifts? This team is going to have this time off while this team covers, and then this team's going to have this time off while this team covers. Could you do something that shows your team that you really care about their life outside of work and you care about their ability to rest and recharge? Could you think about how to provide more flexibility with scheduling, right? Especially for the jobs that are more of those, the difficult jobs where there's not a lot of, like I'm thinking about a cleaning job, right? Where it's tough and it's demanding. And what do you really have to offer? Because the work itself is not fun. So we need something else that makes us feel valued. Could you think about how to rethink your scheduling and how to give people that freedom? And then also, what are you modeling as a leader? When you take time off, are you truly taking time off? When you have leaders on your team that take time off, are you respecting that, or are you emailing them, while they're on their vacation. Because what I learned is, even if someone doesn't expect a response, or even if I don't expect a response from someone, if I'm emailing someone at night or I'm emailing them while they're on a trip and they get my email, they're thinking about it. And it's affecting their peace and their mental health. And I don't want that to be the case. So I schedule my emails. When someone's on vacation, I have a point person that is responsible for their tasks while they're gone. We have a company rule that when someone's off, we let them be off. We don't bother them. We don't want them to come back to 100 emails from the team. We need to honor that time off. I encourage people, when you take a trip, come back, take one more paid day where you just get organized. Don't jump straight into work and meetings and stuff. Take a day to go through your emails, get organized, so you can truly disconnect on your break. So think about that. Would you say you're a calm organization? And I know it's hard when you have members that have very high expectations and so many events and you never have a day off. But how are you going to create that space for your team in that? It's possible, but it just might take a different way of looking at it. The last ingredient is belonging. And this is the one that I think really matters more than any of them. We know that only 4 in 10 people believe that their leader actually cares about who they are as a person and a human being. Only 4 in 10. That's according to Gallup's State of the American Workplace. It's so sad. We spend so much time at work, and to think that it's often the last place that we feel cared for and valued. It shouldn't be that way. We also know that when we look at the rising generation, the suicide rate for 18 to 25-year-olds is the highest it's ever been since the government began collecting those statistics. We know that the rising generation has been nicknamed the loneliest generation. Why? I think a part of it is we grew up building our relationships from behind devices. I worry about my 11-year-old who got a phone in elementary school. What is that future gonna look like? And we're disconnected. And at work, we have this amazing opportunity and responsibility, I think, to build that connection and to really help people see people as people. I think there's a lot of divides in our world too. We're seeing a divide between the older generation and the newer generation. We see divides on views about political issues and social issues and economic issues. And how do we start to bring people together and identify the commonalities? Look, we might have different views, but we're all human. And we can have a level of respect and a level of empathy and a level of understanding for one another. One of the ways that I think we have to do that is we have to give people the space to share their stories. Something that we used to do in team meetings is we would pick a few people, we would ask them to share their story. And I want to share one with you. I was doing this with a client, an engineering company. And this team had been working together for years and years and years. And we did this exercise called the 7-minute story. And everyone had time to think about their life and think about the most meaningful experiences in their life that kind of shaped who they were. And they had 7 minutes to share their life story with the team. And with every person that shared, you could feel the empathy rising, the compassion rising, the understanding rising. There were definitely some tensions between people in that room. You started to feel those kind of, level down a little bit, because now you understand why this person is the way they are, why they operate the way they do, and kind of where they're coming from. There was one person in the room, and he knows I tell this story. His name was Basant. And Basant was always very quiet in our sessions and kind of appeared a little bit disengaged. And I assumed that he just didn't care about the work that we were doing. And when it came time to share his story, he said something like this. He said, I grew up in a really small village in Nepal. My family was so poor, we had to climb the mango tree in our backyard to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's how we ate. We went to a school where the only way you could know your grades was if your parents paid the school. And because my parents didn't have any money, I could never know how well I was doing in school. It wasn't until later in his life that he learned he was number 1 in his class. When he was 4 years old, his dad came to the US because he wanted to make money and build a better life for his family. Basant did not see him again until he was 16. And because they couldn't afford a phone, the only way that they could communicate was by sending mail and writing letters. And it would take months and months and months before he would hear from his dad and vice versa. And as he's telling this story, he's having to pause because he's so emotional, and everyone in the room is like, oh my gosh, I never knew this about him. Then he says, when I finally graduated from high school, I decided I want to come to the US with my family, and I wanted to have a better life. So we all moved here. I brought my high school sweetheart with me. I worked so hard. I worked every odd job you could ever imagine to make as much money as I could. And I put my wife through nursing school. With her income, she put me through engineering school, which is how I got to this job. And with our savings, we gave my parents the opportunity to open a restaurant where they serve food from their village in Nepal, and it's the only restaurant in Houston of its kind. He tells a story, and he's like, so I guess that's my story. And everyone's like, what? We had no idea. And then he says, and I know that sometimes when we talk about challenges and stuff, I seem like maybe I don't really speak up or maybe not engaged. I'm aware that I kind of show up in that way. But the reason is I just have so much gratitude for life. Like, the challenges that we talk about are not real challenges, because the challenges that I had in my life were so horrible that any challenge I have today, I'm so grateful that this is the challenge that we're talking about, and it's not one of those. I realized I made assumptions about him. I mean, you could just feel the shift in that room from the 7 minutes of hearing his story. Do you know your people? Do you know where they come from? As leaders, we say, oh, we have to meet people where they are, but how do we do that if we don't know who they are or where they come from? When we have two people that are having tension, one of the best things I think we can do is have them sit in a room and give them the space to share their story, to start to build a bridge of that compassion and that empathy. The other thing is, I think we have the opportunity to do this in our meetings on a regular basis. We do something called the 1 to 10 check-in. We start every meeting with this, no matter what meeting you're a part of, and it's very quick. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing at work? How are you doing outside of work? Explain your score. If it's a meeting of 20 people, we put people in groups of 4 or 5. Check in with your groups, do your 1 to 10, and then we'll come in and we'll talk about the work we're here to discuss. It sets the tone that we care about people as people before we talk about work. It gives people the space to connect. It doesn't turn into a whole let me solve all your problems. It's not a problem-solving meeting. It's just let me share and check in with where I am so that you understand how I'm coming to this meeting and what's going on in my life. And then we're gonna all have this conversation about work and what we're here to discuss. So could you implement something like the 1 to 10 check-in? I've even seen teams do, are you red light, green light, or yellow light today? And why? But think about it. If someone has a lot going on in their life, they're in a bad mood, they come in, they're negative, people might assume that this person has an issue with people in this room, but we take it personally. It likely has nothing to do with us, and maybe something is going on in this person's life. So creating that space for that empathy to occur. There's also another thing here I want to touch on. This is in your PDF around appreciation languages. Raise your hand if you've heard of the love languages. Okay, so this is Gary Chapman's work. The whole idea is that you give love in the way that you like to receive it, which is great if your partner has the same love language as you. And when Gary Chapman first wrote this book, it was designed to be only in the romantic relationship kind of, lens. So to give you an idea of how this works, my number one love language is words of affirmation, which is when someone affirms me, tells me what they appreciate. In my marriage, it's when my husband tells me he loves me, that he's proud of me, that he likes my dress, or that kind of stuff. My husband's number one love language, his name is Spiros, is acts of service. He appreciates when I do things and take them off of his plate to make his day easier. And for a long time, we did not understand this about one another. So what would happen is he would come home and he would say something like, hey babe, I took your car to get an oil change today, And I'm like, I could care less about that. Thank you, I really don't care about that. Why haven't you said that the dinner I made tastes amazing, And then I would be like, he'd come home and I'd say, oh, I'm so proud of you, or I love your tie, or whatever. And he'd be like, why haven't you taken my truck to get an oil change? And we were just going like this because we didn't understand. We were just giving love in the way that we wanted to receive it. So learning this about each other, we learn to adapt and really meet the other person where they are. Well, Gary Chapman took this into the workplace, and he said the same thing happens. We appreciate others in the way that we want to be appreciated. And it's kind of like the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated, which is nice if someone cares about the same thing that you care about. But if they don't, then it's not having the impact that you want to have. And we talk a lot about, let's build an inclusive culture. Well, an inclusive culture isn't when you treat everyone the same way and you treat everyone the way that you want to be treated. It's really being curious and understanding what matters to each person, which takes a lot more time and a lot bigger of a time investment to really appreciate them in the way that makes them feel the most valued. So I'll quickly tell you the appreciation languages, and maybe as I'm doing it, think about which one you are. Words of affirmation, this is your person that loves high fives, they love handwritten notes, they love to be told what they are proud of them, why you're proud of them, and recognized for things. Then you have acts of service. This is, hey, I see you're overwhelmed, I'm gonna help you get that done. Or I'm gonna take care of this so that you can get out of here early. Or I noticed in the meeting you said you need help with this, how can I help you? That's what means the most to that person. Then we have tangible gifts. Tangible gifts is interesting. It's not just I want a gift. It's I want a gift that shows me that you understand what's important to me. If you give me a gift that I don't care about, it actually hurts because it shows that you don't know me. People that have this appreciation language want to be recognized for milestones. They really appreciate facts and data as to why they're receiving this gift. And then there's quality time. And this is the person that really appreciates catching up before the meeting. How was your weekend? Having a lunch or a coffee or just talking about how things are going, meaningful discussion, sharing an experience together. So think about that. Do you know the appreciation languages of the people you work the closest with? How can you empower them to know that about their teams? What we did is we asked everyone to fill out a form. Tell us how you feel valued. What matters the most to you? How do you feel appreciated? If you're having a bad day, what can someone do to make that better? And we have a database where everyone has their sheet. So if you're trying to build a relationship with someone or make them feel valued, you can find their name and you can have the pieces to the puzzle of exactly what matters to this person. If we want to build cultures of belonging, that's what it takes. We can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. So with that, I'm going to share a final concept, and then we will open it up for some discussion and Q&A. That is, it takes everybody to make this work. I know sometimes as a leader, it might feel overwhelming, and it might feel discouraging that all of this sits on your shoulders, and it doesn't. You need your team. You need their participation. And I know right now we're in a place where it might feel like it's the employee market where, they say jump and we have to jump. And it's not that I'm saying we don't need to care about our employees. I hope that you can feel my heart that we absolutely do need to care about our employees. But it's not fair that it falls only on one side. It takes all of us. And we have a metaphor in our company called the line. And we say we all have to meet at the line. And it's actually a line of tape on our floor in our conference room. We say meeting at the line means that we are going to, as your leadership team, give you feedback to help you grow. We're going to be honest with you. We're going to trust you. We're going to empower you. We're going to build a relationship with you. But you better meet us here too. You've got to give us feedback of how we can be better. You got to be open to feedback. You have to be willing to try again if you get it wrong, to grow, to be better. You have to be open to the relationship that we're going to be building with you, and that has to be reciprocated. It only works if we're all here together. If you're not at the line, we can carry you for a day or two. We know you're human. Like, everyone deserves grace. If we're not at the line, we hope that you'll carry us for a day or two. We're human as your leaders as well. But we most definitely cannot carry the same person every single day. So if you're not at the line, we're going to ask you to leave. And if we're not at the line, you have every right to leave our company. And that's the metaphor that we use. So we say, before you move into action, just reflect. Are you meeting at the line? And if not, how can you better do that? And I really think if we could really embrace that philosophy, our world at work would totally change. So with that, what's on your mind? Questions, comments, feel free to challenge me.